For centuries, the gladiators of ancient Rome have been remembered as warriors, entertainers, and symbols of survival. Their battles filled massive arenas, their victories earned fame across the empire, and their defeats became part of history. But a question has continued to fascinate historians and scientists alike. How physically powerful were these men really? Were gladiators simply well-trained fighters? Or did they possess biological advantages comparable to the world's greatest athletes today? A recent scientific investigation set out to explore that possibility. By examining evidence from ancient gladiator remains and comparing known athletic performance traits with modern populations, researchers hope to gain a deeper understanding of what made these ancient warriors so extraordinary. What they discovered challenged many long-held assumptions. The findings suggested that gladiators may have shared more in common with elite modern athletes than anyone expected. The story begins nearly 2,000 years ago. At the height of the Roman Empire, gladiatorial games represented one of the most popular forms of entertainment in the ancient world. Thousands gathered to witness contests of skill, endurance, and survival. While many people imagine gladiators as disposable fighters, historical evidence paints a very different picture. Training a gladiator required enormous resources. Owners invested heavily in food, housing, medical treatment, instructors, and specialized training facilities. A skilled gladiator was valuable. The best fighters attracted crowds, generated income, and became celebrities throughout the empire. Roman records describe some gladiators as household names whose popularity rivaled famous athletes today. Yet, despite their fame, little was known about the biological foundations of their abilities. That changed when archaeologists uncovered one of the most important gladiator burial sites ever discovered, located near the ancient city of Ephesus. The cemetery contained the remains of numerous individuals believed to have been gladiators. Many skeletons displayed injuries consistent with combat, broken bones, healed wounds, and evidence of repeated physical stress told a remarkable story. These men had endured extraordinary punishment during their lives, but the bones revealed something else. Many injuries showed signs of healing. Again and again, researchers found evidence suggesting that gladiators survived wounds that would have ended the careers of many modern athletes. This raised an important question. How were they able to recover from such extreme physical trauma? To answer that question, scientists turned to biology. The human body contains a genetic blueprint that influences countless physical characteristics. Strength, endurance, recovery speed, bone density, muscle development, and injury resistance are all affected to varying degrees by genetics. Modern sports science has identified numerous genetic factors associated with elite athletic performance. Researchers wondered whether gladiators might have possessed similar traits. As studies progressed, evidence began to emerge, suggesting that gladiators were not merely large or powerful individuals. Instead, they appeared to possess a combination of physical characteristics ideally suited for survival in one of the most demanding environments imaginable. The first major surprise involved body composition. Popular culture often portrays gladiators as heavily muscled warriors resembling modern bodybuilders. However, archaeological evidence suggests reality may have been more complex. Many gladiators likely carried additional body fat compared with modern combat athletes. At first glance, this seemed unexpected, but researchers believe the extra mass may have served an important purpose. Additional body fat provided energy reserves and offered a degree of protection against superficial wounds. In a combat environment where cuts and injuries were common, this adaptation may have increased survival rates. What appeared to be a disadvantage may actually have been a strategic advantage. The second surprise involved endurance. Life inside a gladiator training school was physically demanding. Fighters trained repeatedly under intense conditions, practicing combat techniques, building stamina, and conditioning their bodies for prolonged exertion. Evidence from skeletal remains suggests years of repetitive physical stress. This level of conditioning resembles the training loads observed in many modern elite athletes. The body adapts to such demands over time. Muscles strengthen. Bones become denser. Cardiovascular efficiency improves. These adaptations create individuals capable of extraordinary physical performance. Researchers increasingly realized that gladiators may have functioned less like random fighters and more like highly conditioned professional athletes. The third discovery proved even more fascinating. Bone analysis revealed exceptional skeletal development in many gladiator remains. Strong bones are essential for surviving repeated impacts, intense training, and combat injuries. Modern athletes in contact sports often display increased bone density compared with non-athletes. The gladiator remains showed similar patterns. Years of training, combined with genetic influences and nutritional factors, appear to have produced remarkably resilient skeletons. This resilience would have been critical inside the arena. Every strike, every fall, and every collision placed enormous stress on the body. Only the most durable individuals could survive such conditions for extended periods. As researchers examined the evidence, a new picture of the gladiator began to emerge. These were not merely warriors. They were highly specialized performers whose bodies had been shaped by relentless training, environmental pressures, and biological adaptation. Yet the most intriguing question remained unanswered. How would they compare to modern athletes? To explore this possibility, scientists looked at characteristics commonly associated with elite athletic performance today. Olympic sprinters rely on explosive power. Marathon runners depend on endurance. Combat athletes require strength, resilience, and rapid recovery. Professional rugby players combine power, speed, and durability. Each sport rewards a different combination of physical traits. Interestingly, gladiators appear to have required many of these same qualities simultaneously. They needed endurance to withstand prolonged training. They needed strength to handle weapons and armor. They needed agility to avoid attacks. Most importantly, they needed recovery capacity. Without recovery, even the strongest fighter would eventually break down. This is where the comparison became particularly compelling. Modern sports science increasingly recognizes recovery as one of the most important factors in athletic success. The ability to recover from training allows athletes to improve faster, perform consistently, and avoid injury. Evidence from gladiator remains suggests that recovery may have played an equally important role in ancient combat performance. Repeated signs of healed injuries indicate that many gladiators returned to training and competition after significant physical trauma. Their bodies adapted, repaired, and continued functioning under extraordinary stress. This resilience may have represented one of their greatest advantages. As scientists continued their investigation, they began uncovering evidence suggesting that gladiators occupied a unique position in human history. They were not soldiers, they were not ordinary civilians, they were not simply entertainers. Instead, they represented one of the earliest known examples of systematic human performance optimization. Everything about their environment was designed to produce physically capable individuals. Their diets were controlled, their training was structured, their medical care was specialized, their performance determined their survival. Over time, this system produced individuals whose physical abilities attracted attention across an entire empire, and centuries later, their remains continue to attract the attention of modern science. The deeper researchers looked, the more extraordinary the story became, because hidden within ancient bones was evidence that the pursuit of peak human performance did not begin in modern laboratories. It began thousands of years ago, Inside crowded arenas, under the roar of Roman crowds, where every battle tested the limits of strength, endurance, recovery, and survival. And as scientists continued comparing ancient evidence with modern athletic performance, one conclusion became increasingly difficult to ignore. The gladiators of Rome may have been far closer to today's elite athletes than anyone ever imagined, but the biggest discovery was still ahead. Because the next stage of the investigation would focus on specific biological traits linked to performance, recovery, and resilience. Traits that could reveal whether these ancient warriors possessed advantages remarkably similar to those found among elite athletes today. And what researchers uncovered next would become the most surprising finding of all. For decades, scientists believed that the gap between ancient humans and modern elite athletes was enormous. Modern athletes benefit from advanced nutrition, sports science, performance tracking, recovery technology, and specialized training programs. Ancient gladiators had none of these advantages. At least, that was the assumption. But as researchers continued studying gladiator remains, they discovered something that challenged that belief. The key wasn't just strength, it wasn't size, and it wasn't fighting skill. It was recovery. Today, sports scientists consider recovery one of the most important factors in elite athletic performance. The ability to recover quickly allows athletes to train harder, perform more frequently, and remain competitive for years. Without recovery, even extraordinary talent eventually breaks down. When researchers examined the skeletal evidence left behind by gladiators, they found signs of repeated healing. Broken bones had healed, damaged joints showed adaptation, serious injuries displayed evidence of recovery. Again and again, the same pattern appeared. These men were enduring levels of punishment that would end many athletic careers today, yet their bodies continued adapting. The more scientists studied the evidence, the more one question emerged: how? How were gladiators able to survive such extreme physical stress? The answer appears to lie in a combination of training, nutrition, and biological adaptation. Ancient records describe gladiators following highly controlled diets. Unlike popular myths, many gladiators were not eating massive amounts of meat every day. Instead, evidence suggests their diet relied heavily on grains, beans, and plant-based foods. At first, this surprised researchers. Modern athletes often prioritize protein-rich diets. But gladiator nutrition may have served a different purpose. The goal was not aesthetics, the goal was survival. Their diet provided large amounts of energy needed for intense training, while helping maintain body mass that could offer protection during combat. Combined with relentless conditioning, the result was a body designed for endurance and resilience. But nutrition was only part of the story. The real surprise appeared when scientists began comparing characteristics commonly associated with elite athletic performance. Modern sports research has identified several genetic variations linked to physical abilities. Some influence explosive power, others affect endurance, some impact recovery speed. Others influence injury resistance. No single gene creates a champion. However, combinations of traits can provide significant advantages. Researchers noticed that many physical characteristics inferred from gladiator remains closely matched qualities valued in modern athletes. Strong skeletal development, extensile durability, adaptation to repeated stress, evidence of long-term physical conditioning. The similarities were impossible to ignore. Imagine placing a Roman gladiator and a modern professional athlete side by side. Their clothing would be different, their technology would be different, their worlds would be completely different, yet their bodies may share more similarities than most people realize. Both were shaped by extreme training, both depended on physical performance, both faced enormous pressure to succeed, and both required extraordinary resilience. Perhaps the most fascinating discovery involved bone density. Elite athletes today often develop stronger bones through years of intense training. The body responds to repeated stress by reinforcing itself. This adaptation reduces injury risk and improves durability. Gladiator remains revealed remarkably similar patterns. Their skeletons showed evidence of lives spent under constant physical demand. Every training session, every fight, every impact, all contributed to a body capable of surviving extraordinary conditions. Researchers began to realize that gladiators were not simply participants in violent spectacles. They represented one of history's earliest examples of systematic athletic development. The Roman Empire had unintentionally created a performance program unlike anything the ancient world had seen. Training schools identified talent, instructors developed skill, physicians treated injuries, nutrition supported performance. The result was a population of highly conditioned individuals whose abilities fascinated audiences across the empire. In many ways, gladiators occupied the same cultural space that elite athletes occupy today. People traveled to watch them compete. Fans celebrated victories. Stories spread throughout entire regions. Some gladiators achieved celebrity status that few ordinary citizens could ever imagine. Yet, despite their fame, their greatest legacy may have remained hidden until modern science uncovered it. The evidence suggests that gladiators pushed the limits of human performance long before sports science existed. Their bodies became living experiments in strength, endurance, adaptation, and survival. And thousands of years later, their remains continue teaching us about what the human body can achieve under extreme conditions. The final conclusion surprised many researchers. The comparison between gladiators and modern athletes was never about proving that one group was superior. Instead, it revealed something much more important. Human potential has always existed. Technology changes, training methods evolve, equipment improves, but the fundamental capabilities of the human body remain extraordinary. The gladiators of ancient Rome were not primitive fighters. They were highly trained physical specialists operating at the limits of human endurance, and when scientists compared their evidence with modern athletic performance, they discovered a truth hidden for nearly 2,000 years. The pursuit of greatness did not begin in modern stadiums. It began in ancient arenas. And the DNA, the bones, and the evidence all point toward the same remarkable conclusion. The gladiators were far more than warriors. They were athletes of the ancient world, perhaps some of the greatest the world has ever known. The end.